Ladies, gentlemen, and Nightfarers of all ages, one of the features of the Forsaken Hollows DLC for Nightreign is a pile of new set effect relics available for collection, and while the bulk of the new stuff is attached to the new characters, you may be surprised to learn there are new set relics for the other Nightfarers as well, and in total there are 28 new relics that are set that you can guaranteed get the specific effects on them. There are 10 new all-character affecting relic effects, though technically it only affects a couple realistically. There's 32 effects that have transferred from Deep of Night only to being on RNG Relics now, and there's another 20 from Deep of Night Relics if you count the ones that are on the guaranteed set relics too. And then there's new character-specific relic effects for, of course, the 2 new characters, and those count as well. So basically, there's a whole lot of stuff here. So today we're going to break down all the new set effect relics. We'll talk about the new relic effects that exist in the game in general and what they do, and along the way I'll talk about how good each of these things are too, of course, as well. For brand new effects, there's one that applies to all Nightfarers technically, though realistically it's only usable for Recluse and Revenant, which is a set of effects that changes the spell on your starting armament. It replaces the first slot spell specifically, so using those you can have something like Lightning Spear or Beast Claw as a starting spell for Revenant. It's less of a massive deal for Recluse as her starting spells are pretty great, so it's less worth using a relic slot for that alone, but there are still ways that you can use it for Recluse for fun, even if not for pure effectiveness. Outside of that, there are character-specific new ones for the new characters, of course, but I first want to touch on Deep of Night relic effects. For those who have not dipped their toes in the Deep of Night game mode, there are unique relics that you get for that activity that only work for that activity, and they have their own pool of potential effects that either is completely new ones compared to the regular base relics, or stronger versions of standard effects that can normally exist. That said, there is specifically one of these effect types that has become available on regular RNG relics and can appear on random rolls. And also there are a few more very important ones that are tied to the new set effect relics that we'll be going over after, but don't seem to drop from RNG. The effect that is now available on RNG ones though is Dormant Power Helps Discover X, where X is various weapon or shield or spellcasting implement types. These effects very simply mean that when interacting with a dormant power, it increases the chances of finding that specific weapon type within the rewards. It is essentially the exact same mechanic and function as preferred weapon type for each character, but this relic effect overrides whatever your original preferred weapon type is. It replaces it and essentially changes it to the one listed in the relic effect. That said, you can use this to do more targeted builds in your runs, but it also is important to understand it because now it's in the regular relic pool, and you don't want to accidentally use this on a relic without realizing what it does and turn your preferred weapon type into like small shields or something very unhelpful like that. Outside of that, there's no other Deep of Night relic effects that I have seen or heard of in the RNG relic pool at least, but if you guys have had any drop, please let us know in the comments down below so other players can have that information as well. That said, let's quickly go over the new Nightfarer specific relic effects, which I'll blast through a bit quickly because we've talked about these in detail in our character guide videos if you want to know more about them, and they're already up on the channel. But for Scholar, you have Prevent Slowing of Character Skill Progress, which simply means removes the decay from the Analyze skill. By default, the circular gauge of the Analyze will decay over time if you aren't actively looking at an enemy with the observation window. This relic effect stops that from happening, so you can stop the skill, start it again, and you won't lose any progress. It's decent for solo play where you will frequently have to stop analyzing to dodge, but for group play it's much less valuable. Allies targeted by character skill gain boosted attack. This, straight up, just gives any allies that are in the targeting circle of the Analyze skill a 20% attack buff when you finalize the skill use. Whether you do it at level 1, level 2, or level 3, at whatever charge level of Analyze you do, and whether you do the enemy debuff or self-buff variation, either way, any ally in the observation window gets this buff, which is quite potent for group play, but obviously sort of pointless in solo runs. I highly recommend it for groups though, especially if you are running more of a support type playstyle. Earn runes for each additional specimen acquired with the character skill. This one is quite funky, especially now that I've been able to properly test it myself. This gives you 1,300 runes for each unique type of enemy that you capture with Analyze, meaning the first time that you analyze these random villagers, you'll get 1,300 runes. The charge level that you do it at doesn't matter, and if you try to do it again to the same enemy, you don't get any more. Even if it is the same enemy on the other type of the map, it doesn't count. It has to be different types of enemies. So essentially, if you are just constantly analyzing in every fight that you do, you move around the map fighting various types of enemies along the way, this will just add up to a load of bonus runes throughout the night. Like I'd say you can easily hit 50, probably 100 is very reasonable average, but even conservatively putting it at 50 different target types for Analyze, that means this effect would be equivalent to around 65,000 runes gained, which is very much not bad at all considering that the Scholar has an item heavy playstyle and those extra runes can be spent on more items. But you do have to consider how you're playing, how you're pathing, and how much those extra items will actually be worth for you. Next up, continuous damage inflicted on allies threatened by ultimate art. This one quite simply does damage over time to any enemy that is caught in your ultimate. The damage seems to share through the thread as well, so the more enemies that are caught within your ultimate, the more damage this will do to everything because it sort of compounds. A large group, it has a lot of potential, but you aren't going to want to use your ultimate often in situations that have lots of enemies, usually as boss fights, and there's like a handful of boss fights in the entire game with enough enemies that this would feel properly effective. It's not necessarily a bad effect inherently, but it's just not the best. Then we have the next three effects, and these are ones locked to Deep of Night relics. I will also mention these stat change ones are on non-Deep of Night relics, but not in the RNG effect pool. Only one of the very specific ones I'll be talking about later in the video. The Deep of Night exclusive effect then is reduced FP consumption when using character skill on self, which does exactly as it says on the tin. It adds an extra effect to the self buff version of Analyze, which reduces your FP consumption while it is active. Then we also have the Undertaker's character specific effects. Activating ultimate art increases attack power. Very simply, after you use your ultimate art, you have increased damage straight up with pretty much everything. And this is very, very solid. Contact with allies restores HP while ultimate art is activated. This specifically will apply a heal to the allies that you pierce through with your ultimate attack animation. Obviously you want to hit the enemy with the ultimate as your main focus, but if you can line it up to pierce through allies on the way, this is just an extra bonus, but not something I'd say is worth actively seeking out. Attack power increased by landing the final blow of a chain attack. This gives you a short duration buff after you hit the final hit of a light attack combo. Again, relatively simple, relatively strong, but on the character you will often find yourself doing jump attacks or heavy attacks, so keep your playstyle in mind for this one. Physical attacks boosted while assist effect from incantation is active for self. Weird wording on this one. Simple explanation though is when you have a buff active from an incantation like Golden Vow or Blessing of the Air Tree, stuff like that, you get an attack buff. As long as the incantation buff is on you, you keep that attack buff for that duration. Then we've got two stat changing relics that are mostly exclusive to Deep of Night outside of a couple of specific relics we'll be talking about later, and the pure exclusive Deep of Night skill is Executing Art Ready's character skill. Simple enough, when you use your ultimate, your character skill cooldown gets reset. Those all covered then, let's get into these specific new set effect relics that you can get from guaranteed sources. The first two are the ones that apply to everyone, which are the boss reward relics for your first time defeating each of the new expedition targets. Balancer's reward relic is the Will of the Balancers. Improved melee attack power, which seems to be around 5%, and this applies to any and all melee attacks, including for weapon skills that have melee components. Then we have improved skill attack power, which increases the damage of any weapon skill in the game, and this is around a 15% damage increase to those. This means if a weapon skill has a melee component, it's around a 20% damage increase total, which is sort of ridiculous. Then the third line effect on here is continuous FP recovery, which seems to be 1 FP restored every 4 or 5 seconds or so. So it's very minimal, but it is consistent recovery. I wouldn't rely on this as something that will change your run just to have that specific effect, so much as just looking at it as a bonus cherry on top of the massive damage boost from using this relic for its other two effects. This then is a very strong relic on any character that likes spamming weapon skills in melee, which is a fairly large amount of them. Wilder, Duchess in some situations, Raider, Executor, Undertaker, all of them can get quite high value from this, and Iron Eye can even get decent value too, either by playing him as melee or just purely using it for the weapon skill damage increase, as it is still 15% bonus for bow related skills too. Overall, it's a very powerful relic if you put it in the right place. Next up then we have the boss reward for the other new expedition, the Knight of Dregs, which you get from the Dreglord. This is a funkier one. Status ailment gauges slowly increase attack power. Short description is while you have a status buildup gauge on your screen, you gain an attack power buff every 20 seconds for around 4.5% bonus damage. This works whether the status is fully applied and ticking down like poison, rot, or frost, and it works while buildup is being applied to you. As long as there is a bar on your screen, the effect works. If when the buff would tick up, you no longer have a bar of status, the buff will go away. So let's say you get some poison buildup. You keep that for 20 seconds, you get more of an attack buff, but then you lose the poison buildup. Well, at the next 20-second increment, the buff will go away. If you still have the status gauge when you hit that timer, instead you will get another stage of this damage buff. This stacks up to 10 times for a total bonus of 45% bonus damage, which is an insane boost if you can keep it active, but that would require having statuses active for like over 3 minutes consecutively, which is just a very hard thing to actually manage. Is it possible? Yes, of course, and I'd say in Deep of Night specifically, you can make it relatively reliable because of all the sources of self-status application. But outside of that mode, I would say this is very rarely going to help people a whole lot. The other two effects on this then are attacks inflict rot when damage is taken. Anytime that you take damage, your right-hand weapon gets the effect of a rot grease, but a bit less potent, so you can apply rot to enemies with any weapon in the game, but it will take a few hits for sure. Then the third effect is Rot in Vicinity, causes continuous HP recovery. This gives you a decent amount of healing healing per second while it's active, but it only lasts for 20 seconds after you apply Rot. So if you're fighting one enemy, there is no way to keep this buff active permanently because Scarlet Rot's timer is much longer than that duration. So overall, the relic is pretty meh. There is some niche silly build potential in specific situations, but I would say it's very much not super desirable in general. Moving on to Nightfarer specific new relics then, let's go over the new Remembrance relics for each new character nice and quick, and if you want a guide on doing the remembrances themselves, we have those in our individual character guide videos, which are already on the channel. For the Scholar, you get the Cleansing Tear when you complete Chapter 5 of his Remembrance. This is a red relic that has continuous damage inflicted on targets threaded by ultimate art. This relic also has improved affinity damage negation. This is an effect that otherwise only exists on Deep of Night relics. You can get individual affinity damage negations on regular relics, but this one applies to all affinities, and it is specifically 6% damage negation for those attacks. So it won't help against physical damage, but any sort of elemental attacks will be slightly less potent. Then the third effect is defeating enemies fills more of the art gauge, which just makes you charge your ultimate art faster for each kill that you get while it is on cooldown. And this is a pretty nice combo with the first one. Overall, I'd say this relic is decent, but not something I would go out of my way to use outside of very specific expeditions, like for the Balancer's expedition, this relic is quite good, but the less targets you're fighting, the less value this has. Then for completing Scholar's final Remembrance, which is Chapter 8, you get Note My Dear Successor. This has the effect allies targeted by character skill gain boosted attack, which again is fantastic for group play. It has prevent slowing of character skill progress, which is alright, but not fantastic, and then character skill cooldown reduction +3, which is very solid, even more so in combination with the first relic effect, so you can more consistently keep your allies buffed up. And so while the first Remembrance relic is just sort of okay, this second one I would say is pretty much a must slot for group expeditions while playing Scholar, at least until you can find a better one of these effects through RNG rolls if you get super lucky. Then we have Undertaker's Remembrance relics. For completing her Chapter 3 Remembrance, you get the Leather Monocle Case. This has physical attacks boosted while assist effect from incantations is active for self, which is very solid. Extended spell duration, which is a nice combo with that first effect to make it even more consistent, and then physical attack up +2, which is just a nice solid physical buff as well. Overall, definitely a solid Remembrance relic for sure, not insane, but very, very good. Then for completing her final Chapter 8 Remembrance, you get the Glass Necklace, and this thing is absolutely cracked in every way possible. Like, I don't think you can really justify ever taking it off once you have it. First effect, activating ultimate art increases attack power. Your ultimate is great, and you use it pretty much on cooldown, and attack power is universally useful. Successive attacks boost attack power. I don't think I even need to describe this as being a good effect. It is normally the thing that's on like Winged Sword Insignia, and it makes any playstyle where you aren't doing like charged attacks or jump attacks exclusively way stronger. It benefits a more light attack, chain attack focused playstyle. Power stancing would work as well, of course, and it's very good. The third effect is Ultimate Art Auto Charge +3, which speeds up the passive regeneration rate of your ultimate's cooldown pretty dramatically. More frequent ultimates is great for this character, but even more so when combined with the first effect on the relic here as well, so it's just a fantastic relic as a whole. Outside of those, after you defeat the Balancer's expedition, you unlock one specific set relic for each new character for purchase at the Small Jar Bazaar. For Scholar, red relic prevents slowing of character skill progress, intelligence +2, arcane +2. Not great, I'm not a big fan of that character specific effect. The int is basically wasted, and the arcane barely makes a difference for the stage that he's already at, so I'd say this one is pretty meh. Then the Undertaker relic here is blue relic, attack power increased by landing the final blow of a chain attack, +2 strength, +2 faith. This one is pretty solid. The faith you only use sometimes, the strength is pretty much always relevant for her, and that's a decent character specific effect that she has on it too. You can even mix that effect with the Glass Necklace Remembrance relic to have both successive attack damage increase and attack power increase after final hit of chain attacks, which is a nice sort of synergy there. The final grouping of new set effect relics then unlocks after you defeat the Dreglord expedition for the first time, and you have to purchase them from the Collector's Signboard. These are basically the same concept of a relic repeated for each character, but each character has two relic effects that used to be exclusive to Deep of Night. They flip their stats around in some way, raising some stats, reducing others, and the idea is it creates new playstyle options while still using the same character, the skill, the passive, the ultimate, but changing the way that you use them otherwise. These new relics all have those Deep of Night effects, but on non-Deep of Night relics, which means that you can use these sort of playstyle completely altering effects in regular games, in normal expeditions. The secondary relic effects are just boosts to a couple of the stats that support that. For Wilder, improved mind, reduced vigor, with some bonuses to both of those stats too. Then improved int and faith, reduced strength and dexterity for more casting focused Wilder, with int and faith bonuses. For Guardian, improved strength and dexterity, but reduced vigor, so more pure damage focus instead of tank focus. Improved mind and faith but reduced vigor, so again less tanky, more focus on incantations and casting type guardian instead. For Duchess, improved vigor and strength, reduced mind, so more Unga Bunga Duchess, and then improved mind and faith, reduced intelligence, to lean you more towards incantations than sorceries. For Recluse, improved vigor, endurance, and dexterity but reduced intelligence and faith, so dexterity build Recluse instead of spell focus, and then improved int and faith, reduced mind, which I guess is meant to make you hit harder but with less longevity, but considering your character skill and the constant regen you can have from it, you can still make this work for absolutely sure. Iron Eye gets improved vigor and strength but reduced dexterity, so moving him more to be a big bonk guy that can fight closer range safely. His other option is improved arcane, reduced dexterity, so if you want to focus more on statuses than on raw output. Raider gets improved mind and intelligence but reduced vigor and endurance, which means this is for a sorcery caster style Raider, which is quite funny as a concept. Then improved arcane, reduced vigor, so a bit squishier but better status application ability. For Revenant, improved vigor and endurance, reduced mind, so tankier and more capable in close range, but less FP to manage with. Then improved strength, reduced faith, which is for Unga Bunga Smashing Revenant, which I know is a fan favorite among those who do like to play Deep of Night. For Executor, improved vigor and endurance, reduced arcane, so lower status build-up potential, but tankier and more comfortable stamina management. And then improved dexterity and arcane, reduced vigor, so making his damage and status even more powerful, but he becomes much squishier in return. Then we have the new characters who also did get some of these. Scholar gets improved mind, reduced vigor, which is for if you intend to do like a long range playstyle with him, using something like Wraith Calling Bell perhaps, but even then his default mind is alright. I wish this also boosted your int so you could justify using it as like a sorcery playstyle, but it doesn't do that. The other option is improved endurance and dexterity, but reduced intelligence and arcane. The intelligence loss is basically irrelevant for this character. The arcane means worse status buildup, but dexterity gives you a proper, viable weapon scaling stat that you can use more actively, and increased endurance makes it easier to use weapons in close range too. So this is basically the relic that enables more standard weapon use on Scholar, as otherwise without this he mostly has to focus on either items or statuses to be effective. Then for Undertaker, improved dexterity, reduced vigor and faith. This works for if you want to do a quality style build looking for strength, dexterity, mixed scaling weapons, but the vigor hit is not ideal of course. The other option is improved mind and faith but reduced strength, and this is basically just for if you want to be an incantation spell casting focused Undertaker as opposed to Unga Bunga Smashing like she normally does. That does it for what all of the new relics actually are and the effects as well, so let's quickly go over how to effectively farm for RNG relics really quickly too. The main two sources of RNG relics in the game are either the pile of them that you get at the end of any expedition. You get more relics the more successful you are, so winning an expedition is ideal for this. Then gambling random relic rolls in exchange for either Merc at the Small Jar Bazaar or Sovereign Sigils at the Collector's Signboard. Merc is generally easier to generate a large amount of and has nice conversion ratios to relics too. That said, the main way to get Merc is, well, winning expeditions as well. You get Merc at the end of an expedition no matter what, but the actual amount scales with how successful you were, with around 3,000 on a successful run. The new Shifting Earth, the Great Hollow, adds an extra way to directly target farm runes. We have a basic guide for the Shifting Earth already up on the channel, with a more detailed one coming out a bit later today. Might already be up by the time you're watching this video, but part of this Shifting Earth is the temple locations. These are the towers located at the southeast and on the western, sort of northwestern side of the map. These areas have Crystal Curse debuff, so you ideally don't want to do them until you have cleared out the Great Crystal event and gotten the buff for doing so at the center of the map. But each temple is basically a boss gauntlet. There are 3 bosses in a row, one at each floor of the temple, and then at the top of it is a bonus power that you can pick up if you beat all 3 of them. The bonus power is called False Vision of a Great Rune, and part of its effect is that it gives you 2,000 Merc at the end of an expedition as a bonus. Regardless of whether you win, you lose, it doesn't matter, you will get that 2,000 Merc. And if you somehow manage to clear both temples out completely and get both of these buffs, you get 4,000 guaranteed bonus Merc at the end of the expedition. So if you do both towers and have a successful run alongside that, you get like 7,000 Merc total, which is sort of crazy relative to our old methods of farming for this resource. The final thing you can do then is just sell any relics that you don't intend to use. There's no point hoarding relics that you will never slot in, and you can sell them from the Relic Rights menu in exchange for extra Merc, which you can then use to buy more new relics, almost like a discount for getting a bad RNG roll on it to begin with. And that pretty much does it for today then everyone, your guide to the new relics and relic effects in Nightrein's Forsaken Hollows DLC, and the generalities of farming Merc to make getting RNG relics a little bit easier. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and I wish you luck in your relic RNG within the game moving forward. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.